As the world awakens to the thunderous echoes of conflict on February 28, 2026, the Middle East finds itself plunged into a new chapter of turmoil, with the United States and Israel launching coordinated strikes against Iran, marking a dramatic escalation from years of simmering tensions and failed diplomatic efforts over Tehran's nuclear ambitions and regional influence. Explosions have rocked downtown Tehran, with thick plumes of smoke rising over the Iranian capital as Israeli jets, supported by American forces, targeted key military installations, nuclear facilities, and high-ranking officials, including Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei and President Masoud Pezeshkian, in what Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu described as a preemptive operation to remove the existential threat posed by the Islamic Republic. U.S. President Donald Trump, in a fiery address broadcast from the White House, confirmed the initiation of major combat operations aimed at dismantling Iran's ballistic missile capabilities, halting its nuclear program once and for all, and potentially toppling the regime that he accused of waging an unending campaign of bloodshed and mass murder against American interests and allies. This assault comes just 8 months after the fragile ceasefire that ended the 2025 Israel-Iran war. Through a 12-day conflict that saw extensive airstrikes and missile exchanges but failed to resolve core disputes over Iran's uranium enrichment, which had reached over 400 kilograms at 60% purity before the previous hostilities. Iranian state media reports multiple blasts across cities like Isfahan, Qom, Karaj, and Kermanshah, with the operation codenamed Roaring Lion by Israel and Operation Epic Fury by the U.S. Department of Defense, focusing on IRGC command centers, missile production sites such as the Kodir complex, and hardened facilities at Parchin that were previously struck but have since been rebuilt with protective structures to withstand further attacks. In retaliation, Iran has unleashed barrages of ballistic missiles toward northern Israel, triggering air raid sirens and interceptions by the Iron Dome system, while explosions have also been reported in Gulf Arab states including Bahrain, the UAE, Kuwait, and Qatar, where U.S. their military assets are stationed, signaling Tehran's intent to expand the battlefield to American bases and interests across the region. A senior Iranian official, speaking to Al Jazeera, declared that all American and Israeli assets in the Middle East have become legitimate targets, with no red lines after this aggression. See, as state TV broadcasts calls for revenge and a strong response, echoing the regime's long-standing rhetoric of resistance against what it terms the Great Satan and its allies. The strikes dash any lingering hopes from recent Geneva negotiations, where the U.S. demanded Iran destroy its nuclear facilities, ship highly enriched uranium abroad, and commit to a permanent deal, terms Tehran deemed unacceptable, leading to a massive U.S. military buildup in the region, the largest since the 2003 Iraq invasion, including aircraft carriers like the USS Gerald Ford and USS Abraham Lincoln, fighter jets, and air defense systems. Iran's proxy network, the so-called Axis of Resistance, including Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, and militias in Iraq and Syria, has been placed on high alert, with Kataib Hezbollah threatening a war of attrition and warning Iraqi Kurdistan against serving as a launchpad for attacks, amid reports of prior strikes on U.S. forces in Erbil and Iranian ballistic missile tests in the Strait of Hormuz. Eyewitness accounts from Tehran describe chaotic scenes, fighter jets streaking overhead, air defenses firing into the night sky, and residential areas shrouded in smoke, while social media footage captures the panic as civilians seek shelter, reminiscent of the 2025 war's devastation that left infrastructure in ruins and heightened global oil prices due to disruptions in key choke points. Your Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz justified the assault as a preemptive strike to neutralize Iran's missile launchers and threats, declaring a nationwide state of emergency as incoming Iranian projectiles light up the skies over Tel Aviv and northern border regions, with one man reported lightly injured in the initial volleys. The international community watches with bated breath. The United Nations Security Council has called an emergency session. While countries like Australia have issued statements supporting U.S. efforts to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons, sanctioning over 200 Iranian-linked individuals, and advising citizens to evacuate the region immediately due to heightened risks. Protests within Iran, which have simmered since early January, with 81 demonstrations across 23 provinces fueled by economic woes and regime repression, now risk morphing into armed uprisings. As intelligence suggests, CIA and Mossad involvement in arming dissidents and ethnic separatists, pushing the Khamenei regime into survival mode, with brutal crackdowns leaving thousands dead, and the IRGC conducting nationwide missile exercises to deter further incursions. Oil markets are already reacting volatilely, with prices spiking amid fears of blockades in the Strait of Hormuz, through which a fifth of global oil passes, to potentially triggering a worldwide energy crisis and economic ripple effects from Asia to Europe. Hezbollah's leader has warned of a fateful war, boasting enhanced missile capabilities since the last conflict, while Iranian advisors claim unique weapons ready to finish it for good, heightening the specter of a broader regional conflagration involving Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen, where Houthi attacks on shipping could further disrupt Red Sea trade routes. Casualty figures remain sparse, but initial reports from Iranian media suggest significant damage to military sites, with unconfirmed claims of deaths among top commanders, while Israel reports successful interceptions but braces for prolonged exchanges that could strain its defenses. This confrontation stems from decades of enmity. Iran's support for proxies like Hamas, which ignited the 2023 Gaza war, leading to over 200 attacks on U.S. targets and retaliatory strikes. The April 2024 Israeli hit on Iranian generals in Damascus, prompting Iran's first direct drone and missile assault on Israel, and ongoing nuclear standoffs, where Tehran has defied IAEA safeguards, enriching uranium perilously close to weapons-grade levels. Trump's administration, bolstered by alliances with Gulf states wary of Iranian influence, views this as a decisive moment to curb Tehran's ballistic program, which has rebuilt protective sarcophagi around key sites despite previous bombings, and to empower internal dissent against a regime accused of directing attacks on foreign soil, including Australian Jewish communities in 2024. As sirens blare across Israel and explosions reverberate in the Gulf, global leaders urge restraint. Yet with Iran's foreign ministry blaming Israel for fomenting domestic unrest and vowing to turn protests violent, the path to de-escalation seems narrow, potentially drawing in superpowers and reshaping the geopolitical landscape for years to come. In Iraq, militias like Kataib Hezbollah have mobilized, threatening irreparable losses to U.S. forces if the conflict widens, while the Kurdistan regional government denies any role as a staging ground, fearing reprisals from past Iranian strikes on Erbil. The human cost is mounting. Civilians in Tehran huddle in basements amid power outages and collapsing structures. Your Israeli families rush to shelters as missiles rain down, and Gulf residents report blasts near U.S. naval bases, underscoring the fragility of peace in a region scarred by proxy wars and ideological clashes. Analysts warn of a high-stakes gamble that could lead to oil spikes, refugee crises, and even nuclear brinkmanship if Iran accelerates its program in defiance. with polymarket odds spiking for prolonged conflict into March, reflecting market jitters over global stability. Indian embassies in the UAE and Qatar have issued advisories for nationals to remain vigilant, highlighting the spillover risks to diaspora communities, while Australia's Prime Minister condemns Iran's destabilizing force and supports U.S. actions, though critics argue this is less about nukes, given Trump's prior claims of destroying Iran's uranium capabilities, and more about regime change. The social media buzzes with unverified clips of fiery skies over Tehran and jubilant reactions from anti-regime protesters who see this as a catalyst for freedom, contrasted by hardliners rallying around the flag, chanting death to America and Israel in a bid to unify a fractured nation. The U.S. Navy's MQ-4C Triton drones patrol Iranian coasts, monitoring for submarine threats or mine-laying in vital waterways, as intelligence assessments predict Iran's missile power, bolstered since the 2025 war, could overwhelm defenses in a sustained barrage. With the Israeli cabinet convening special sessions and Trump promising the hour of freedom for Iranians, this assault may signal the endgame for a regime long isolated by sanctions, yet resilient through asymmetric warfare and alliances with Russia and China, who have yet to respond but could tip the scales with arms or diplomatic cover. As the dust settles on this fateful day, the world holds its breath, pondering whether these strikes will forge a new Middle East order or ignite a firestorm that engulfs the globe in unintended consequences. From economic shocks to humanitarian disasters, all while the people of Iran, Israel, and beyond yearn for a dawn free from the shadows of war.